Sorry to say it, but there's a big chance that whoever you are, you're using rewards with kids all wrong. Hello out there, this is Dr. Brett Pearce, child psychologist, and I'm here to talk with you all about the appropriate use of rewards. Reinforcement, but we'll say rewards for simplicity's sake with kids. Now, I can't tell you how many times I've talked about this with lots of different folks in lots of different situations. It's understandably kind of challenging and confusing. And the substantial chance is that if you're someone watching this video who really feels like you've got some challenging behaviors in a kiddo that you're with, whether it's yours or you're a teacher or something like that, that rewards are not being used correctly. I don't know, one of those two. This is a really, really important subject because if you're not going to use a reward correctly, then in my opinion, you almost shouldn't use it at all because it can kind of backfire on you. And I'll explain more about what I'm talking about in a minute. So first, let's go ahead and, I guess, define our terms. So in terms of behavior, a reward is anything that is intended to increase a behavior, and a punishment is anything that's intended to decrease a behavior. For the purposes of this video, we're just talking about rewards, and we're also just talking very simply about giving something good that is desirable to kiddo as a reward and with the idea of increasing behavior. Simple enough? Great. So there are two big things that folks usually run into trouble with when they're using rewards that I see. Or at least those are the two that I'm going to talk about. They're the biggest two. The truth is that this subject, like most of the others that I talk about, can be really big, and we could go on and on and on about it. And at least I know I could go on and on. So we're going to stick with just these two for today, and I might do a part 2 of this video at some point soon. So the first thing that people really struggle with when it comes to using rewards is that they set the bar way too high with when they're going to give the reward, meaning they basically expect way too much out of a kid. And I'll explain why and why this is a problem here in a bit. The second thing that I see folks running into when it comes to the use of reward is that they use, this is not a carrot, but you get the idea. They sort of use the reward a little bit too much like a carrot. They're kind of dangling. Yeah, it's a lizard, I know, but it was right here, so I grabbed it. They use it a little bit too much like, okay, well, come on. And that's not really the right way of using a reward. So let's get into the first issue. The first issue is that when a kid is struggling with a lot of behavior problems, it is understandable that us adults could get really frustrated with that kid. Understandable. And very often when we're acting out of frustration, we tend to set expectations that are just too big because without really intending to, we're really sort of showing the frustration and saying, okay, well, Bobby, you've not had a good day with your behavior for 6 months, but I'll give you a reward once you can give me a week in a row of good behavior. And what I say to that is, oh, interesting. So he's not even been able to succeed for a day, scarcely an hour, but he's supposed to go a week. And if we really are slowing ourselves down and paying attention, we probably are going to see how there's a lot of frustration in that expectation that's just way above where kiddo's at. So that's the first really critical issue with the use of reward. Whatever we're going to do with the reward, whether it's just using a lot of good praise, which by the way is a wonderful reward, using something tangible like, a toy of some kind, we really want to make sure that we're thinking quite small in terms of the expectation and the reward. We don't want to think so much big, like, for example, it's usually a lot more effective to just think, okay, the very second I see something desirable about that the kid is doing, even if it's something little, and even if the kid has lots of other misbehaviors, I'm just going to say, wow, I love how you put your toys away right the first time I asked. That was awesome. It made me feel so good. We want to think about doing something like that. That's a lot more powerful than, well, if you can put your toys away every single time for a week, then I'll take you out and buy you a toy. It's not wrong to get the kids something big, but we don't want to do that instead of the immediate small thing. So it's just very, very important that we do it that way. Why? Well, imagine if you're a kid who is struggling with a lot of misbehaviors. And if that's the case, then it's understandable. It's totally understandable if there's lots of frustration and maybe not great things being felt sort of all around in the household. Everyone's frustrated with each other. No one really has a lot of confidence in things going well. So if we set an expectation for a kid, and we even manage to, and this would almost be worse in this situation, we really get the kids buy-in. Yeah, you're going to get this big awesome toy if you can just go a week. Then I'll get it for you, even though the kid scarcely can go a day without any negative behavior. What do you suppose is going to happen? Well, the kid is not going to be able to succeed, and it's just going to be it's going to be an even more kind of loud, exclamation point at the end of the sentence example to the kid of, see, you can't cut it. You can't please me. You can't get the good stuff. And so it just contributes more to kiddo going, okay, why bother? And usually that's not our intent. I really appreciate that. That's not our intent. But we always, always, always need to be thinking, how can I get this kid to succeed? And how can I hone in on the smallest unit of success with a simple, immediate reward? And probably, just the use of praise is fine. But if it's another small little tangible, then great. So that's the first point. We need to make sure that we set the bar low, at least for starters. That we think of the smallest unit and we think of just simple, easy ways of providing a reward. We don't so much want to think about big long-term stuff, particularly if we've got a kid who's really struggling a lot anyway. The short term is much, much more important. So this leads me to my second point about reinforcement. It's the fact that we tend to use reinforcement. Okay, I found an orange one. Okay, there we go. Looks like a carrot. We use reinforcement way too much, almost like a bribe. And the problem with that is that rather than being something that's sort of positive and then that gets earned and celebrated, it ends up being sort of used almost coercively. And I know that's kind of a strong word to use, but frankly, that's what happens. It would be a lot like if a boss was constantly trying to get you to do something more and was constantly holding rewards and things like that over your head. I mean, it makes a lot more sense at work because you're there for a tangible, you're there for money. But, too much of that, and I mean, it really takes on a different quality than just sort of let's achieve success and celebrate it and get something good because we succeeded. So if we're going to use a reward, we do not want to be using it sort of like a threat, which is to say, oh, fine, you don't want to clean up your toys, I guess you're not getting your toy. We don't want to do that, because then we start to turn it into this kind of power struggle dynamic, which doesn't often go too well. It is perfectly appropriate to provide little just gentle reminders, like we're going to sit down and play with toys, and we've made an agreement with the kid that if he can clean up toys, then he can get 10 minutes extra of tablet time. It's perfectly fine to say, oh, and hey, looks like you're going to play your tablet. It looks like you're going to play toys. Just remember, we have a deal where if you can put your toys away the first time I ask, then you'll get 10 extra minutes. What game are you going to play? That's perfectly fine. It just needs to be a neutral, fairly mild reminder of the deal. But then we really, really need to be careful that we're not acting out of frustration and kind of using it too much as a threat. Oh, fine, I'm going to take it away. You're not going to get the reward. Because then we destroy the power of the reward. And instead, we even get the kid to just go, oh, that's how it's going to be, huh? Fine. I'm not going to play this game. So it is really, really important for us to be thinking in terms of just if the kiddo doesn't do the behavior we want after we've given a reminder, we don't really worry about the reward. If the kid mentions the reward, then we can just say, oh yeah, shoot, the deal was you had to put your toys away on the first time I asked. that didn't happen. I'm so excited for you to try tomorrow. It's also fairly sensible too, like if the kiddo goes, okay, fine, what else can I do? And to maybe come up with something, because we want to capture the kid's motivation. That's sort of a bit of an aside. The point is, we do not want to use this as a threat, and we do not want to dangle too much of the, okay, come get it kind of thing, because then we transform this from being just sort of like a celebrating success, getting some good stuff, and motivating us for doing good behavior, to a power struggle. And that's not what we want. So again, the two big things that we want to focus on with rewards is we want to set the bar way down. We want to think, in small units when it comes to the kid's behavior. We don't want to think in big units. We really, really want to be thinking like, well, if kiddo is struggling even hour by hour to show good behavior, then I want to think just 1 hour of good behavior maybe. And usually then it's even just a lot better to just the very second we see something neutral, or even, just a little bit positive, to just give some good praise to that kid. And the second thing we want to be very careful about is we do not want to dangle the reward too much. We do not want to use the reward as a threat, because then it stops being a reward and starts to turn into something else, like a power struggle. So thank you for listening. If you learned something from this video, please think of subscribing with the button down below. Give me a thumbs up and smash that bell notification. Until next time, this is Dr. Brett Pearce, child psychologist, signing off.